What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai, an extension of Anime Senpai PH channel. All pieces of information are derived from the light novel. In today's video, we will continue Chapter 6, Volume 7 of the light novel, entitled Gods and Demon Lords. This video is the fourth part of Chapter 6 in our Tensura spoiler video series. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, feel free to check out the links in the description below. Now, let's get to the video. The sight of Saad and Glenda, seemingly unfazed, helped the leader rally his exhausted mind. He said it's still alright because the battle sages didn't let them down, and they were truly the heroes of the West. His hunters might be done for, but with these two on hand, victory could yet be theirs. The leader felt encouraged and turned back toward Diablo. The leader yelled that Diablo was every bit his demon lord servant, because it was no doubt that Diablo was just as good at bluffing as his master. The leader accused Diablo of bluffing when Diablo said that he had called that lord's ambition. The leader stressed that it took a demon lord class monster to wield that skill, and if archdemon was the highest level of the demon races, it was impossible for Diablo to become a demon lord. That proved Diablo was a liar, the leader concluded. In the East, this fact was considered highly classified research. The leader knew that demons had an upper limit to the amount of magicules their bodies could store. This was a set number across all of them, even though they could differ in other forms of strength. Older demons would have more experience in battle, allowing them to form better strategies for conserving their magic and squeezing everything they could from it. This was also one reason not to fear demons as much as people often did, because if you knew your enemy's magic limit, you could work with that, no matter how they tried to spin it. Knowledge is power, and having the right knowledge can keep an obvious bluff from clouding your mind. Diablo responded that those statements were both correct and incorrect. It was true that demons like himself were limited in their magical count. However, it was possible to evolve to the next level, assuming the right conditions were met. Diablo told the leader that he thought the red would be an example famous enough for him to be aware of. And then a certain demon flashed across the leader's mind. One so famous, his entire existence was the exception that proved the rule. Diablo continued that it would be simple enough to obtain the title of Demon Lord. All it took was for one of them to build their strength up to the maximum level, then live for at least 2,000 years. One hardly needed to even work for it. Diablo made it sound easy, but in reality, it was fiendishly difficult. As a spiritual life form, demons naturally enjoyed combat. Even if they were never summoned to the physical realm, battle was a constant part of life in the spiritual one. Losing a fight over there would dock magicules off your upper limit, which meant that some demons actually devolved over time. Reaching one's maximum, then maintaining it for 2 millennia, basically meant evolving into an archdemon and building an unbeaten record, that entire time without even a single loss. The demon hunter's leader wasn't aware of that per se, but even he had a hunch that Diablo was heavily downplaying the stakes involved. But the offhand reference to the red was what attracted his attention. Diablo was speaking of that absolute ruler, the famous demon, as if they were casual buddies. The leader couldn't believe what he heard. Demon society worked in a strictly hierarchical relationship, according to a theory first advanced by Lord Ghidorah, the great sorcerer from the Eastern Empire. This hierarchy was punishingly strict in nature, applied equally both to the primal demons and the higher level members of each demon type. A lower level one, referring to a higher level one without some term of respect, was as unthinkable as the end of the world. Diablo told the leader that perhaps the White would be more famous in the East, where the leader had grown up. He had observed her using Lord's ambition over there just the other day. The remark cleared the haze from the leader's mind. He recalled the events of several years ago, just before Blanc, the fearsome original White, took form in this world. They called the event the Bloody Shore, and if it had turned out the wrong way, it would have marked the birth of a second Gi Crimson. disrupting the balance of demon lords and dooming the planet to chaos. The Empire used its clout to bury the events of that day, ensuring the public didn't know about them. The leader turned pale, and now he knew that the demon that casually called them red and white had to be at least as powerful as the one that caused the bloody shore. The leader screamed internally that there was just no way for them to win. He couldn't believe how any of this could happen. And then, all too easily, something snapped. Demon hunters were professionals, not thrill seekers. They didn't risk their necks over a job unless the money was right. If it involved protecting their own family, that was one thing. But nobody wanted to die in a faraway foreign country like this. And now that the leader understood how desperately outclassed he was, he abandoned all resistance as futile. The leader let go of all shame and honor and pleaded with Diablo to at least spare his life. Diablo rewarded the display with a gentle smile. He asked the leader what's wrong with him. Diablo said the leader had passed the test for him, and they could have some fun. He could find out whether Diablo was bluffing or not, and the leader should see it for himself. The leader was desperate, and there was no more doubting Diablo. He realized fully now that this was a supreme danger to himself and the rest of the world, and to say that this demon was bluffing was ridiculous. The leader pleaded to forgive him and told Diablo that he only came here for the money. The leader swore that he would never defy Diablo again, and he would never do anything to interfere with him. The leader even said that if Diablo ordered him to slit the king's throat while he was still unconscious, he would do it for Diablo right at that moment. The pleading was taking on a pathetic tone, and it turned out to be worth it. Diablo finally told him that in that case, he could live. Diablo instructed the leader to go into the barrier the journalists were in and take all the other people strewn around with him. The leader immediately obeyed. Without hesitation, he shook his fellow hunters awake and ordered them to fetch the fallen knights for him. The leader personally lifted the king over his shoulder before fleeing into the barrier. None of the journalists chided him for it. They were too busy watching over this bizarre turn of events, holding their breath in anticipation. The area in front of the tent was much cleaner now, as Saare flashed a defiant smile at Diablo. He said that was impressive, and he found it hard to believe that Diablo was merely a calamity-level archdemon. Diablo asked Saare if he was not fleeing him. Saare responded that it was such an amusing remark. He introduced himself that his name was Saare, and he directly served the Holy Emperor of Lubelius as part of his imperial guard. He was a member of both the 3 battle sages and the 10 great saints who stood in opposition to this demon lord of his. Saare asked Diablo who he was. Diablo responded that as he had stated earlier, he was called Diablo. That was his name, as granted to him by the great and powerful Lord Rimuru. Saare asked him back if Diablo still wasn't going to reveal himself. Saare attempted to keep himself friendly and at ease, even as the humiliation was making him reach his boiling point inside. All Diablo's talk about people failing to overcome his terror was a direct affront to him, but he kept his thoughts rational. He wasn't the kind to let pointless anger cloud his self-control, but in his mind, Diablo was acting far too disdainful with him. Those demon hunters from the east were a joke, bragging about how professional they were, but forced to beg for their lives at the end of it. Saare had let them keep up their act, since Glenda had suggested using them as sacrificial pawns, but this performance was far below his expectations. Internally, Saare sneered at the demon before him. Saare said he shouldn't have expected more from private citizens. They were tasked with guarding the Holy Emperor and the God Luminous herself. They were far more prepared to battle than private citizens would ever be. Despite that, he kept himself on a higher alert than usual. Saare recalled that Grigori had wanted to fight as well, but it looked like the prey had chosen him instead. In which case, it was time to make this demon regret his arrogance. Diablo was an unknown name, not mentioned in any of the ancient texts he was familiar with. It meant this was no great demon, and nothing was to pose a threat to him. And this talk about red and white was nothing but merely pretensions, so nothing was there to be so afraid of. If this was a still unnamed primal demon, all bets were off. However, he could tell his foe was no regular archdemon. But to Saare, this didn't seem like much to be concerned about. It was the sort of confidence that only the truly ignorant could have. Saare just knew too little about demons. In his eyes, if this one wasn't going to reveal his true nature, he would just have to rip the disguise off by force. Saare, after all, had enough power to fight a demon lord alone. Valentine might have escaped at the end of their battle, but Saare was a hair's breadth away from slaying Valentine. So a mere archdemon like this one in front of him wasn't cause for alarm at all. That explained why Diablo's attitude irked Saare so badly. But Diablo's next statement made the battle sage doubt his ears. Since Saare wanted Diablo to reveal himself, Diablo said that he had so little interest in strength and he had forgot to mention it. Indeed, as Saare said, he was not an archdemon. In fact, Diablo had completed his evolution to Demon Peer. Diablo casually added that it was rather similar and he thought Saare would see. Diablo asked Saare to try to remember the difference. That much really didn't matter to Diablo, not as much as his name did. It was a trivial matter to him, but a massive crisis to Saare. Saare couldn't believe it, and he didn't want to believe what the demon before him had just said. A demon peer was purely the stuff of legend, unofficially classified as a disaster level threat, and its force far exceeded anything else in the demon family. Not even a higher level spirit could hope to catch a whiff of that kind of power. It would take multiple elemental lord class creatures to deal with it. Only a few very old tomes had examples of one interfering with this world, but it proved that they did exist. Saare recalled the strongest demon lord that ever walked the earth. Now it made sense to Saare that a demon who had lived for millennia and become a demon lord class presence, like Diablo mentioned, could evolve into a demon peer via some kind of trigger. Of course, the revolution would boost his force to such dizzying levels. The Red's magical count had ballooned to several times that of a regular archdemon, and he had all those extra years of experience too. Truly, there was no limit to his strength. That's it for this video, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you will never miss the upcoming continuation of Tensura spoiler video series. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the top 10 commenters on my previous video. Shout out to Melon, Goan Chuan, Joji Ray, Peanut, Ryuga Dragon Emperor, John Lester, Sarang Patankar, Lea Victor Adraneda, Amiral Tempest, and last but not the least, shout out to Chabong Bam GCash. I'll see you guys in the next video.